my future self has created this present reality.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast. This is the Jeff Heilman Project. Hey, episode 53.
What's up, people?
Yeah, and so, we promised 2 weeks ago that we were going to do a story time. However, a certain turn of events happened. You did not get an episode last week, and I heard about it from Christine, by the way, who was disappointed that her weekly dose
Christine.
of the J&J project
Try to be
here,
more consistent.
the Jeff Heilman project, was not there. But so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about going away, and I really want today's episode to be about this awesome, revelation that you had about looking at how you see the past.
Call this one the time machine episode.
Yeah, it's like the time machine. It's like Back to the Future, or exact kind of Harold. Was it okay, Andrew? Was it Harold Ramis?
Robert Zemeckis.
Robert Zemeckis. Watch out! Back to the Future is about to commence. We're gonna hit.
If you're gonna go build a time machine, might as well do it in style.
We're gonna hit 55, 85,
88.
We're going to hit 88 miles per hour. You can see how far removed I am from that movie right now.
I know, it's 1985. Remember that.
But before we get started on going back to the future, how was your week? Where you went away and then you came back, and now you've started a new week.
I had a bit of a rest in a hotel a couple of weeks ago, 2 weekends ago, weekend before last, I think. I'll do that occasionally, probably once a quarter or twice a year. I'll just go sit in a hotel, take my 3x5 cards, my typewriter, some books, some reference materials, and take notepads, and I'll just write. I'll paint, and I'll draw, and I'll pray, and I'll just kind of cleanse my heart and my soul, and get into the Word, and just get focused back on the really important core state. It's a state change. When I played my best golf or closed big deals, or when we've had really good parties or events that we've done, there's a state change that you get. It's that ideal peak performance state, or IPS, ideal performance state. And sometimes rest is what I need to get to that, to where I don't have anything for work or the kids or you or anything asking me to do anything. Some people could be like, well, gosh, the guy has kids. They're going to be needy and they're going to ask him for stuff. And that's why you had kids. And that's true. But I think if the pace that you and I run at with social media, with the channels, with the postings, with the newsletter, with my job, with your job, with 7 kids, with upkeep on the house, and not including the fact that your grandparents just passed, the fact that you had to clean, stage, sell your childhood home.
Yeah. Don't think it's too... unfair. I'm going away this next weekend.
Yeah,
so.
you're going away to Vegas to go.
I'm doing a girls' trip.
Girls' trip with Madeline and Nessie.
And you got to clarify.
It's a little
the
different,
Vegas
though.
Trip is with my daughters, not
it's a
with
girls'
the girl.
trip to Vegas with our 6-year-old.
Exactly. But yeah, it's so important to rest and recover. When it's, in my opinion, sending you away to have some time by yourself and getting to pray. No, it's no different than when we were growing up and our grandparents would, there was a mandatory, or I don't know that it was mandatory. Yeah, I think it was they had to take 2 weeks off a year or they'd lose it, right? Like if you don't take your 2 weeks of vacation, you'd lose it. And if you're in corporate America during that time frame, I know when we grew up, my grandfather religiously took 2 weeks off during the summer and we would all go camping, or, there's just such an important... there's a reason why in every movie from National Lampoon on, there's a family vacation, pile in the station wagon, do something. There's a reason that was a part of our culture and has been a part of our culture, is that getting back to nature, getting to, relax and recover and go away from devices and the everyday things it's important. And so rather than taking 2 weeks during a certain set period of time. We like to try to break that up for 3 days here, 3 days there, you know, a situation
for me to take
like that.
2 weeks away from a job where I've got deals going is
can be pretty unrealistic.
Would be pretty difficult if I'm going to be totally off the grid.
Yeah.
Where I don't touch email, I don't respond to text messages, I'm not on Slack, I don't manage comments and social streams. Like, that's just not. To do that for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, like, I don't have a business that's successful enough that I could take off and not have that yet.
Yeah, which is why we're going to talk about now, I think is a perfect transition, to talk about the future, how you see the past. And I would like you to, maybe you can share with us how you're.
This is going to be a good episode because I'm getting a little nervous actually about talking about this content. It's not something that I'm really that clear on yet. I believe what I'm about to tell people is true, but I haven't articulated the story enough to where I've got it down. But I'll just get into it. And
let's go.
And if it's bad, I'm sure Andrew will cut it out. This weekend, I had listened to I'll watch a lot of YouTube videos, and if it says visit advertiser and it's even remotely interesting, I'm going to click on it. Like, I just do the opposite because everybody, like, I want to make sure those ads are targeted exactly at what I want. So I click on all the ads. If it's visit advertiser, so I have an entire queue of probably 300 or 400.
It's not just if it's visit advertiser. We were watching YouTube on your phone the other day, and the guy was doing art, but it was all in Spanish. It was all in Spanish. You're not even just getting targeted English ads.
You don't have to speak English to sell me ads. I'm just my ads could be multilingual targeting.
I mean, it's something you're interested in. It's art, but and then you're like, no, he sounds beautiful. I want to watch it. We watched it for like 5 minutes until it was completely over.
Some dude speaking Spanish, but he had great art. I got the van.
Yeah.
So I clicked on this, and it was a guy talking about how he'd spent a lot of time in psychology. And, you know, there's a lot of studies right now with AI and psychology and dopamine and how the narrative shapes what we believe is possible and self-limiting beliefs and things like that. And I'll put the link in there it's an ad. It's an ad for joining a community. I'm not sponsored by this guy. I don't even remember his name, but I have the link, and it's really good. I probably watched this ad for this community like 25 times. Because I was
your
trying to get
Sham Wow was so successful.
my Sham Wow. Sham Wow.
You'll be saying wow every time you use this towel.
Sham Wow, the Sham Wow guy. So this guy, Benjamin something, Hardy, I think, Benjamin Hardy. I'll get the link. I watched it so many times, I just have his name blazoned in my head, have the IP address memorized. But this guy talked about, does your present shape your future? Or does your past shape your present? Or does your present shape the future? And I'm sitting there like, going, well, golly, Jeff, if I didn't drive over here yesterday, I wouldn't be here right now. So you could say a case could be made that your past shapes your present. But his premise was the past already happened, but your present view of it changes over time. So effectively, the story you tell yourself about yourself is flexible. And as your present changes throughout time, your story of your past changes too. And my story of my past has definitely changed. It had to change in order for me to have a better self-image and belief of what I could do. Because I had, originally it was pretty rough. But now looking back at it, I'm like, wasn't that rough?
Yeah.
Well, those events only happened once and they've been over for years. How could my present be shaping my past? Well, it's because the story is important. The narrative is important. So if your present is shaping your past instead of your past shaping your present, how is your present being shaped? And his premise is that your present is being shaped by your image of your future self, your identity of your future self is shaping what's happening in the present. It's what time is it right now? It's 5:44. 5:44, I don't have a bottle of water in my hand, but at 5:45, I'm going to have a bottle of water in my hand. Okay, now it's 5:45, 4:45. Now I have a bottle of water in my hand. The picture of my future self with a bottle of water shaped back then what is now the present.
The fact that you put it down the fact that you had originally put it down didn't put it back in your hand. The picture you had of grabbing it put it into your hand.
Yeah, or the picture that I'm going to put the water bottle. I have it in my hand now, but in the future, it's going to be on the table.
Right.
Now it's on the table. Now it's in the present. The future shaped the present.
And let's talk about why this is so important to you. And you told me, you said you used to have a habit of sitting down and literally like writing down, okay, 2005, this happened, 2006, this happened, 2007,
I used to do it
this
while I was on the
happened.
podcast. I'd sit here and write down 95, 96, 97, emblazoning, crystallizing in my mind what had already happened.
Was it out of concern for you didn't want
It
happening
was
again?
No,
or?
it was looking for success threads. I was looking for golden threads to try to see how could I repeat this thing that we did before. How did that work? And what I realized is that I've been holding myself back. My friend Sean, called me out on this probably 2 years ago. What I've been doing is looking backwards. And yet the success that we're enjoying, the vapors of what's left in the bank account after the acquisitions, the startups, the huge deals that we've done, we're still living on the trailing indicators of the success that we had when I was in a state of looking forward at my life and crystallizing what that future would be and continuing to generate new ideas, new clarity, new anticipation. And I think I talked a little bit about it on the last episode, that we just got a big deal done, and it was a major account. There was a lot of money involved. It took a really long time to do it. It's basically 5 months of breakfast, lunch, and dinner with, cocktail napkin sketches about how we were going to get this thing done. But that whole time I was reaching forward. I had a goal, I had a timeline, I had a dollar amount in my mind that I wanted to get this thing done. It was really important to make sure that this was successful. It ended up being a large deal in company history. It ended up being way over what we needed for the quarter to close. And we got it. We got it in. And it closed right before the board meeting that we'd had, which was really exciting for me, because it was like, God, I held this picture in my mind for months that I would get this thing in before the board meeting. And then the day before the board meeting, we still didn't have the contract signed. And then the board meeting shows up. We have the contract signed. Like 45 minutes before the board meeting started, we get the contract in. And I was able to get it, and the CEO was able to have that in his quiver, an arrow in his quiver for the meeting. And it was like my future self has created this present reality. And it was like I was back. It was like a time machine going back to when I was winning, going back to when I was a kid, and I didn't really know what it took to get stuff across the line, and I was just doing it by hope and by faith and just blindly stumbling around in a room trying to get deals or get jobs that would pay me enough to feed the family. And now it's like, I know what it takes. I know what it takes to get deals. Even people might get a little grumpy with me at work because I'm telling them this is what we got to do, and they're like, we don't need to do that. I'm like, really? Like, I promise you, just do what I'm talking about doing, please.
Yeah.
For all of us, we're going to get this thing across the line. And then they do. And then it works. And then your future has then determined what your present reality is. So when I have a friend of mine that I talked about with this concept, and I have guys that I spin stuff to, and I just say, does this sound right to you? Or what's off? What am I missing on this? And I have some pragmatists and some real guys that are just really harsh. And they'll say, no, this is wrong because of X, Y, and Z. I usually don't call those guys first, by the way. But I had a friend of mine who had quit smoking years ago. And he struggled with it for months, trying to quit smoking. And then he gets to the point where he's at the proverbial rock bottom. He's got his daughter in AYSO soccer, and you're not allowed to smoke anywhere near the kids or on the field, so you got to go in your car. So he's like walking through the parking lot of this sea of cars to try to find his car so he can roll the windows up and smoke. It's 110 degrees outside. He's living in Texas. It's 140 degrees in the car. Doesn't even need a lighter to start a cigarette. And he's sitting there puffing and smoking, and he's like, this is ridiculous. I'm missing my daughter's soccer game. I'm in here like a drug addict, hanging out in my car. It's 140 degrees in here. It's blistering hot. This is just ridiculous. And he comes to this point where he says, I'm either a smoker or I'm not. And he goes, I don't want to be a smoker anymore. Takes the thing out, puts it out in the ashtray in his car, and he never smoked another cigarette since. And he had that shift of identity to where he no longer identified himself as someone who smoked. And so even if he had urges, even if he had cravings, he couldn't do it. It would be almost impossible for him to smoke, even with the withdrawals, because he no longer saw himself as somebody who smoked. And I think that we don't pay enough attention to how our identity is being shaped from a body image perspective, from a makeup and hair and, facial hair perspective, from a media perspective, what you're supposed to weigh, what you're supposed to look like, how tall you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to wear. Like, all of those things are shaping our identity, and there are companies spending trillions of dollars a year to do it.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room for everybody is finances. There's a well-known lyrics that I recited many times as a child. Let the poor say I'm rich, let the weak say I'm strong. We can look at people like Matthew McConaughey and Jim Carrey having both personal testimonies of having huge numerical dollar sign figures that they've written down. And it's not about manifest destiny. It's about, like you said, shaping your future based on, at your present, you can choose to look back and be pigeonholed into who you used to be, and then continue to keep that picture of who you used to be. But it's not going to, it's just such a double-minded and torn point of view to see yourself as you used to be, and yet also trying to reach for the stars at the same time. You kind of have to decide one way or the other. Are you going to be this person? Are you going to see yourself as this person that you're hoping to be, or are you going to remain held back by who you used to be? And
most people are held back today by a future picture of who they used to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not criticizing anybody. I feel for people. I've been in that situation where I've held myself back by using my future picture imaginator, my future image generator, to look at limitations of the past and to reiterate and regurgitate and reiterate and continue to, and my identity now is being shaped by a new picture, a new goal that I've been hammering in every single waking minute of the day for the last couple of weeks. And it's been remarkable. It's literally, and one of the things that the guy said, Benjamin Hardy, I think that name keeps coming up. I think that's him. One of the things he said is if you set a 2X goal, you can keep about 80 to 90% of your life the same. But if you set a 10X goal, and that's separate, the book's separate from the Grant Cardone.
I was going to say, it sounds like Grant Cardone.
Grant Cardone did the 10X book in 2011, I think. This is his book. Benjamin Hardy, I think, is the guy that's named. I think the name of the book is Why 10X is Easier Than 2X. And he talks about when you set a 2X goal, you don't really have to change that much. For me to make double the income, I'd have to work harder, but it would actually be perceivable. It's actually possible doing what I'm doing right now to make 2X of what I'm making. It is impossible to make 10X what I'm making right now.
Without making a major shift.
Yeah, I couldn't do the same thing and make 10X in any way that I could have seen. Like, it just doesn't, no, there's no way that I could see doing it. So one of two things is either going to happen. You either settle for a lower goal or you look backwards and try to figure out how you were successful the last time. But I've actually had a 30X year. 2004 was a 30X year. I set a 10X goal and I hit 30X in 1 year, more than I had ever made. I went from $20-something thousand to like almost $700,000 in income in 1 year.
So it sounds like you've been looking for the formula. Like, what's the formula?
I've been looking for what did I do?
There's got to be a basic formula. Right?
What happened that worked? Well, here's what I did that worked. Number one, I set a 10X goal, which meant I had to transform basically every system, every standard operating procedure, every routine, every way that I'm thinking. I had to change everything in my life. And some people are like, well, I don't want to change everything in my life. That's okay. I'm not saying you should. I was sick and tired. I was 28 years old. I'd never made over 25 grand a year in my life. I've been married to my wife for 10 years. We had 3 kids. I was living at home with my mother-in-law. God bless her for putting up with me. And it wasn't the first time I'd moved in with my parents. It was the 4th time I'd moved in with my parents since leaving home. And I was sick of it. And I'm like, I don't care what I have to do. I am willing to make major changes in my life. I set a 10x goal and I didn't back off of it. And I multiplied my income in 1 year by 30x. And it was the most transformative, most crazy, and it's pretty much never gone back. I mean, I pretty much stayed at the same income for 20 years, which could be great, you know, except for the fact that our lifestyle has increased and taxes and inflation and credit cards and all this stuff. So it's time to do it again. It's time for me to have another 10x goal to where I have to transform literally every aspect of my life of what I'm doing and how I'm thinking. And in doing that and setting a 10x goal again, I'm starting to crystallize in my mind what it's like to be in that ideal performance state again. I have a friend of mine, we'll call him Bob. His name is not Bob, but we'll call him Bob. And Bob and I both worked for the same company back in 2002. And we were both fired from the same company on the same day. And I went on to a technology career, which the next couple of years was really good. And then it kind of, you know, it's been great. I mean, it's been good. It's kind of mediocre by 10x standards, but other than that, still top 2% income, right? Still good. But Bob went on to build a construction company that he was offered a couple $100 million last year for this business. And obviously, like, I'm happy for Bob, and I've been to see him. Lives out on the East Coast. He's done well. And I love him. But, you know, there's also like, what the heck, Bob? What did you do? We both worked for the same idiot boss 20 years ago. And I made a couple million and you made a couple $100 million. Like, something's different. What did you do? And I asked him, do you mind if I ask, what do you do all day? Why do you think that you made a couple $100 million and I didn't? Because I'm willing to do. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm asking you to tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it. And he said this to me, and it kind of went over my head. It was a couple years ago, but it came back to me this weekend when I was listening to this ad. And he said, I spend almost all day, every day, architecting my life. What kind of knots are we going to have on the sailboat? How wide's the pinstriping going to be? What kind of teak wood are we going to use on the deck? And what colors are we going to use when we paint the name of the boat on the back? And what's it going to look like? And how much sheen? And what's the draft on the boat going to be? And how big is it? And where are we going to have it docked? And what are the next 15 ports of call that we're going to sail to? In order. What are we going to have? What's going to be on the menu on the boat? What's going to be on the menu at the restaurants we're going to eat in the ports of call? Just hammering crystal clear picture in his mind all day, every day. And I'm like, how do you find time to work? He's like, work is the easiest thing ever because I end up making all the right moves because the person I identify as is this couple $100 million construction dude. So I don't make a lot of mistakes because making mistakes would be inconsistent with my identity as a couple $100 million construction dude. I was like, he's like, I get more done in 2 hours than most people get done in 2 weeks because they're the right decisions. They're the big things. They're the things that matter. They're the things that are consistent with somebody that's in that couple $100 million identity. And then I go back to I'm either a smoker or not. Well, it's like, well, I'm either a $200 million construction guy or I'm not. Well, if you are, then you are.
Yeah.
So that's the time machine.
So as we're winding down, because I know we don't have very much time.
About 15 minutes is all.
A week actually before you went away, and maybe this was this is just part of our process. We started playing a little game, and so I think this is the perfect opportunity to play the game. So here, couples, those of you who are married or just you and your best friend, here's the game. The game is money's no object. The game is money doesn't exist in this world. You can do whatever is on your heart. You can do whatever is on your mind. You take turns saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to build this. And then the other person gets the opportunity to say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And we're just building an exercise and a practice. If you were completely limitless, what could you do? So, honey, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to...
It's a private game we don't usually talk about.
I'm going to produce a film. I've had a film. I just had an idea for a movie. I dreamt it one night from beginning to end. And so my first 10 million is going to go to producing this film and hiring a bunch of nobodies and paying them top bill rate. I think it's going to be more than 10 million now that I'm thinking about the cost. What's a good independent film usually run, Andrew? 20?
Probably 15, 20 million.
Okay. My first 20 million is I'm going to produce an independent film, and I'm going to hire a bunch of nobodies, and we're going to have the film. Your turn.
I want to get a garage over on Osrias,
Okay.
where the cars are,
All right.
and I want to do a wabi-sabi
Ooh.
remodel of a 356 Porsche. You can go to the Peterson Auto Museum. It's the Porsche exhibit in Los Angeles, or maybe I'll just have Andrew. I'll send Andrew the pictures. But there was a guy who stripped away all the paint from a 356 Porsche and put a blue and white Madras fabric seat cover
It's
in
the
it.
bonsai
And it is
356
so
Porsche.
beautiful to me. This steel, it has a linseed oil covering in it to keep it from rusting. So it protects it against the oxidation and the rust. But it's stainless steel, kind of patinaed from the late 50s, early 60s. A 356 convertible Porsche, 4-cylinder engine, but light, so it's plenty fast, handled fine. He had the interior totally redone, and the contrast between the white and the blue Madras fabric that he used to cover the seats and the back and the cover for the convertible.
And the term wabi-sabi is Japanese, and it's really
Everything taken away, but the essential.
Yeah, I asked Siri. I'm like, hey Siri, define wabi-sabi, and what she defined it as is the acceptance of imperfections.
Oh,
and so they take in this wabi-sabi practice, something that is not perfect, and it's beginning to corrode over time as
Like
it
me.
is, but it's
project.
yet accepting it, and it's embracing it, and it's celebrating that things get old, and as they get old, and it's interesting because Adam and I were talking about it today on an earlier podcast about how unfortunate it is that we in this Western culture do not respect and treat our elders as they do in the East, because they have a really great grasp of just really, like, this is experience and this is life and the value for life. And so wabi-sabi is really about celebrating life. So I'm going to produce a movie. You're going to have a car garage.
I want to be able to have a car garage where we can do car remodels just for pleasure, just for fun, and start working on those. But I want the 356 Porsche to be the first one. And then I want to invite friends over to help work and see it and kind of create that sense of community. I think that as I start painting more and drawing more, I'm seeing how the high-tech software sales community is entirely virtual. And it's very difficult. My manager at one of the company that I'm working for right now lives 0.8 of a mile from me. I hadn't seen him in 3 months. We have the same downtown little area. And I hadn't seen him in months. I had dinner the other day, and it was really nice to have dinner with him.
Yeah.
And one of our other colleagues who was in town from Texas. And I thought about, like, Pablo Picasso and Gertrude Stein.
Yeah, just
and
hanging
Hemingway,
out.
just hanging out in a salon in Paris, talking and working through as a mastermind group their art, their craft. Hemingway would have Gertrude Stein read his novels. Pablo Picasso would have Gertrude Stein look and review some of his art. Van Gogh had his brother. I've had you as a mastermind partner in the house, but we're not making money together. Like, we're not in a business or commerce together. I go off and do my thing at work. You go off and do your thing at the church, and we're separate during that period. And so for me to have art be something that is so exotic and exciting that it ends up creating community and pull, whether it's, retail stores or an artist community or a metal shop where we can do custom work on putting old cars together. I think that there is an aesthetic sense of community of old men standing around looking at engines.
Shucking and jiving.
Women can participate too in this.
Absolutely.
But, like the kids working on cars in the front yard like it used to be. My kids don't work on the cars in the front yard. They don't have friends that they go to their houses. They don't ride bikes. They don't go out. And so I think we need to create opportunities for collisions with other people in community.
Okay, so
and I think art is a way to do that.
I've spent $20 million on my movie. You've spent what do you think?
$500,000
Half
maybe.
a million
Yeah.
on your
I need to spend some
on
more
your project.
in the remaining
I'm
minutes?
gonna
You're next.
for my next. I'm going to say that I would like to take a trip. I mean, we've always talked about. I would like to take a Pullman Palace car train ride. I don't know if they have it through Africa, but my vision is being on a train, going through the safari, going through the looking out the train and seeing giraffes and elephants and things running alongside the train and the big windows in the dining car. I just think that that's like super, super cool and out of Africa and stuff like that. So
I would love to do that. They do the Orient Express, right?
Yeah,
It goes all the way from Istanbul all the way to London through the Channel. You can go as far as you want on that, and you can do the same thing through Africa. You can do the same thing through Europe.
okay, so that's going to not be $1 million, but it'll definitely set us forward. Considering it would be really great to have a a really nice flight on the way there.
I would want to go spend an entire summer in the south of France or Italy or like Lake Como and just draw and paint every day, eat fruit, drink my coffee, smoke my tobacco pipe.
Yeah.
Enjoy nature and just draw what I see and just get better at looking and seeing branches and trees and colors and shade and shadow and line and values and volumes and all of the aspects of really great artistry, and do it in a way where I could be off the grid for a couple months and be just in monk mode. I would love that. I think that starts to get into things like that money can't buy. Money cannot buy you being off the grid. Like you could be off the grid and not need money.
Yeah.
You could have enough to be off the grid and just have a business that was like, you check in once a week or never.
Yeah.
The Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week situation. I don't think, and I have a couple of friends. This is an interesting thing too about your future. I have a friend who started a business and he had a business partner and they ran it for a couple of years and they made plenty of money. And they both just left that business and went back and got jobs this week. And it doesn't surprise me because the picture that they had of the business that they wanted was an off-the-grid business without scale, without anybody else running it. Really, they had burned out in their jobs, but then they got rested. And then they got back and they're like, we miss our jobs. We miss the engagement. We miss the buzz of being around other people and all that stuff. And the thing is they were doing what they could see to do. And they're both independently wealthy. Like they're both, 10 million plus net worth. They don't need to work. Neither one of them needs to work for money.
Yeah.
But they do need to work for that sense of community and tie together. And my thought is, if I could have a non-traditional business, a business based on art, a business that drew community together through social media, through creating rich experiences with cars or baking or painting or drawing.
Travel,
right? You could create that and that experience, scale it through some sort of social media engagement, and have your cake and eat it too, and be off the grid for periods of time and on the grid for periods of time, and be in deep work monk mode. If I could be in deep work monk mode 6 months out of the year, living anywhere in the world, and then working super hard to create content the other 6 months, you would get both. You would get the community, you get the hard work, you get the income that you need to scale and keep the family going. I think this podcast could potentially be, but podcasts seem to be more commoditized these days. But
well, as we're finishing up here, to use a tennis analogy, you don't play tennis in a good professional tennis player like what we're doing right here. Set, match. We're sharing our visions back and forth. won't hit the ball unless they can visualize where that ball is going before they strike the ball.
Yeah, they gotta have a place to send it.
They have a cut corner or down the middle or lob. They know before they hit that ball where that ball's going to go. And so that's what we're encouraging you to do on today's podcast is sit across from your spouse, and instead of talking about where you used to be or the concerns for the future, maybe play a little game of visualization ball and
Toss the ball back and
toss
forth
the ball
in
back
your
and
mind
forth
of
in
where
your
you're
mind
going.
of where you would like to go, where you're going. What does that look like? Spend ludicrous amounts of money. If it's, I want a Rolex watches going up all my arms because I want every single color. Give yourselves the freedom to be able to absolutely blow your belief sky high, and then just see where it takes you. See where you're able to go.
See if setting a big goal in your mind and crystallizing it will start to give you hunches about what you should be letting go of.
Amen.
That could be getting in the way of getting to a 10x goal that you wouldn't even know was getting in the way of a 2x goal because it's possible. That setting the seemingly impossible goal of a 2x, of a 10x shift, like you're going to have to get rid of some stuff. There's stuff you're doing that's getting in the way, and it might be your job. It might be your house payment. It might be your credit card debt. It might be the thing you thought you really wanted, but it's maybe not big enough. Maybe it's getting in the way. And if it is getting in the way and it becomes clear, I can't get to 10x with this thing that I've been hanging on to out of fear that I thought I needed, but not only do I not need it, I need to get rid of this thing, whatever it is. It could be smoking cigarettes. It doesn't matter that we even know. You can certainly put it in the comments if you want to talk about it. But what's important is that if you stretch your mind by setting a 10x goal, and then you start to crystallize what that compelling future could be like. What would it look like if you made 10 times as much money as you're making right now? Is that crystallized? Is it clear? Can you commit to that future in your mind of living in that and architecting your life the way that my friend Bob did? Can you do that? And then can you start to notice in your nervous system what your body, what your spirit tells you that you got to get rid of in order to get to that goal? That, to me, is the time machine. That is the future identity of yourself as a $10 million actor. You mentioned him earlier.
McConaughey or Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey. He pictured himself as a $10 million actor, and he got a $10 million check for doing The Mask, I think, or one of those movies was $10 million, and he literally walked into that future.
I believe he had a check he had written. He
wrote a check to himself for $10 million and dated it.
Yeah.
And it was like within 2 weeks before that check was due in the future, he had $10 million in the bank for one movie that he had done. And I think we need to get back to basics of dreaming and identifying ourselves as super achieving, immortal beings that are capable in these earthly bodies of creating incredible dynamic and growth and success. And then identifying, getting crystal clear on what that actually looks like, setting timelines for it, and making it so big that it literally crushes our current limiting paradigms of what we're doing to where we have to make changes to accomplish those goals.
So thanks, everybody. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of food for thought, and you will evaluate your current projects and what you guys are going through. Next week, I hope it's our plan to have Teddy over for a little story time and hear some more about the Jeff Heilman man of mystery himself. But for now, good night, everybody. Goodbye. Good morning. Arrivederci. Buenos
Thanks for
noches.
dialing in. Yeah. And click on those visit advertiser buttons.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
even if they're in
gracious.
Spanish.
Yeah, right. Good night, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you soon.
See ya.
Bye.